We are back, and I've set up a new live stream. So thank you all for joining me. So, as promised, I am making a pretty major channel announcement. We are partnering with Mental Athlete Apparel. I know I've done an ad for them before, and I know we've been to an event, so you can check out the video of that event where they did chess in the park, and we went and crashed it and went to see what Mental Athlete Apparel is all about. So basically, I have signed on with them, working with them to grow their brand, and we're going to work together to continue promoting mental health, especially for young people, and that's what Mental Athlete Apparel is about. So they do their local chess clubs, they do different events that are geared towards mental athletes, and I'll explain what that concept is later. Mental athletes, young people developing the discipline of the mind, and through that to be able to use both their profits and their outreach programs to reduce the youth suicide rate around the country, but especially in our local communities. And 15% of all of their proceeds from sales of apparel, things like that, go to supporting local nonprofits who are doing the work of supporting youth in our local community. So basically, the speaking engagement is that Mental Athlete has been working to put together a seminar with different speakers. We've got different people. So our founder, Aaron, is going to speak. We've got a local pastor who is also a trauma professional who is going to speak, and I'm going to be one of the speakers as well. So this is a really cool opportunity for me to go out there, and I'm not usually a public speaker. I know it seems kind of counterintuitive because I do the YouTube thing, but just speaking in front of actual people is a bit of a different experience. And so I'm excited for the opportunity, and I'm going to use this opportunity for you all to get a sense of what Mental Athlete Apparel is about by me practicing what I'm going to be presenting tomorrow. So this is basically my talk that I'm going to be giving, and you guys have a chance to get a sneak preview of it. And basically, it's talking about what Mental Athlete Apparel is about from a mental health lens, how I see the definition of what a mental athlete is, and how we apply that in our lives to improve our own mental health. And I'm working with Aaron, our founder, to be able to get you all a coupon code so you can check out the link in the description below, mentalathleteapparel.com. Every time you purchase, again, like I said, 15% of all the proceeds go to a local nonprofit supporting youth mental health. And so I'm going to get that coupon code for you all so that we can partner with this organization, support them, and be able to help things grow with the organization and with the endeavors that they're trying to promote. So this is going to be slightly different from the way I normally present on YouTube because I'm kind of going into my public speaking mode and going through what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow. So a mental athlete, by the definition of the organization, is a person who is skilled or trained in the use of the mind, and that requires mental strength, discipline, and stamina. And so I'm going to discuss within a mental health lens how I see those three attributes and how we can develop those as mental athletes, as people. And so what I'll say is that I want all of my clients to be mental athletes. And what I mean by that is that if we think about physical athletics, it's not just for the professionals. It's not just for pro athletes to be physically active, okay? Just like with physical athletes, not everyone who participates is going to be a professional, and that's not the point either. So, for instance, I'm not going to put off walking 30 minutes a day just because I'm not going to be in the Olympics doing speed walking, right? That walking is still good for me even if I don't go professional with it. So exercise is good for everyone and still benefits us even if we are not pursuing it as like a career. And it's the same thing for mental athletes as well. So mental health itself requires that strength, requires that discipline and that stamina. So let's talk about mental strength, all right? In my mind, that is the will to be able to do something difficult. And I most often see that with clients who need to make a difficult choice. And that might mean having a hard conversation with somebody, maybe in a romantic relationship, that you need to confront somebody about something that's not good for them or not good for the relationship. And that's a hard thing to do, and that requires mental strength. It might be for another client, quitting drugs, and that is also a choice that requires boldness and that mental strength. So when I think about mental strength, think about lifting a heavy weight when you want to compare it to the physical aspect. Um, all of those take strength to take a difficult course of action. So let's think about discipline then. Creating and maintaining consistent routines that are helpful for you. Think of this as, in the physical realm, going to the gym regularly, right? This is especially important for clients who manage chronic conditions. If we talk about anxiety or bipolar disorder or PTSD, these are all chronic conditions that we need discipline to create routines and helpful habits that perpetuate our stability and our mental health. So having discipline around habits such as taking medication, consistent exercise and diet, good sleep, all these other habits can help us manage chronic conditions. And then finally, stamina, the ability to endure challenging circumstances. So in the physical realm, think of maybe running for longer than you thought you were able to. It doesn't mean that you have to be happy to be in those circumstances. I know that if I end up going on any distance runs, I am not happy from the first step to the last step. But can I endure? Do I have the stamina to keep going despite the discomfort? So things like experiencing a breakup or a major life change, such as moving across the country, the death of a loved one, this is the resiliency that we have to cope. That is our mental stamina. So let's talk about developing these attributes. And the important thing is that all of these are going to be built up over time with repetitive action and not overnight. I know we want it to be kind of like a quick fix, like, oh, let me get strong, let me have stamina, let me have discipline overnight. It doesn't work that way. But we'll talk about the steps here that we need to take in order to build up these things. So for strength, all right, let's think about this in the physical realm, okay? If you go to the gym and you want to build your strength, you don't automatically go to the heaviest dumbbell that you can find, try to lift that. That is not how we develop strength. That's how you get hurt. So in mental health, we start with the 1% step. And this is an analogy that I use with a lot of my clients. When we think about making major changes, we want to go to the 100%. We envision the 100%, the final product. Like, I want to be mentally stable. I want to have all of these good habits in place. I want to make all of these changes so that my life is going to be better. And that's great. That's ambitious. But what happens is if we try to make all of those changes right away, we find it very difficult to sustain that. And so think of if someone's trying to overcome social anxiety and having difficulty speaking to people in a public space. Their 100% might be doing like a public talk like I'm going to do tomorrow. But I wouldn't start with giving a speech in front of a crowd for someone with social anxiety. Maybe the 1% step is just going out to a gathering where you have friends there, where you know people there, and just hanging out there for a certain period of time. That's like the 1% step. I want to make it as easy, as attainable as possible, because when I add up all of those 1% steps, eventually I get to 25, 50%, 75, 100%. So the common thinking error is that I have to make this change 100% right now. And that sets us up to fail because that's really hard to maintain. We might be able to do it once, but it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be unsustainable most likely. So we build up to it. So let me transition to talking about discipline then. As you take those 1% steps, you add experience, you build habits, and you rehearse the changes that you're trying to make. So here's the difficult part, right? Discipline isn't something that we just have. Nobody is born with just being disciplined. That is something that everyone builds up to, and it's something that you build with all of those 1%. And so the best thing we can do about discipline and to build it is to be mindful and honest about our current patterns, right? Both the productive ones and the unproductive ones. So I have clients who feel like they don't have much going on with their lives. Sorry, Kitty's just antsy right now. But we need to be honest. Like, some people say, I don't have a routine. I don't have a pattern. But even that, if I'm just staying at home all day, if I'm avoiding going to school or avoiding going to work, there's a pattern that builds up over that as well. And so I need to be honest about what that pattern is. What do I do when I'm feeling anxious? How do I typically respond? And that's a pattern in itself. And the important question to ask, okay, I'm letting Kitty go, is what do I do on autopilot? When I'm bored, what is my go-to? Do I open my phone up and go on Instagram? Or if I am feeling anxious, what do I do? Do I um, reach out for help? Or do I tend to withdraw? Those are all things that I need to be honest about, and those are the disciplines that I've built up. I might not like what I see, but I need to be honest about what I'm engaging with and what I am doing when faced with a certain stimulus. And being honest about my patterns helps me to make choices. Because if I'm denying that there's any pattern, like, look, I just get anxious, okay? And I don't know what I do, but in reality, if I know, like, when I'm anxious, I go and stress eat. Like, I need to know that that's a pattern so that I can be aware that that is something that I'm doing. And so I can make a choice about that the next time I am feeling anxious. So let's talk about stamina then. My ability to endure difficult circumstances. And what I'll say is that stamina is not just about toughing it out. It's not just gritting my teeth and being like, okay, I'm going to buckle down and sit with this emotion and it's going to suck and I'm going to put myself through it because that's what I need to do. It's not about toughing it out. Everyone has what's called like a window of tolerance. And you can think of this as almost like a river. And it widens and narrows based on some different factors. And the wider it is, the more space there is for stress and difficult circumstances to flow through. And the narrower it is, those same stressors and difficult circumstances start to rush faster because it's more condensed and tight, and there's more pressure associated with them. And so there are different practices that we can do to widen our window of tolerance and make our window of tolerance more narrow. So distress, things like poor diet, poor sleep, overwork, those things tend to narrow our window of tolerance. And so, like, if I have a huge deadline at work or I've got a huge assignment due in school, if I am pulling all-nighters, if I'm not eating well, if I'm not engaging with my friends, and I'm not meeting appropriate challenges, those are all things that are going to narrow my window of tolerance, and it's going to make it difficult for me to perform at my best. I'll feel more on edge, I'll feel more stressed, and it's going to make it harder for me to have this stamina because I'm not fueling myself properly. And this goes for both kind of physical and mental health. And so we can look for things that open up or widen our window of tolerance. Things like a healthy challenge, movement throughout the day, going outside, spending time with others, emotional honesty. Being honest about how I feel can actually widen my window of tolerance. And this is one of those disciplines that we can build up where a lot of my clients have difficulty saying that they're feeling anxious or that they're feeling very depressed or that they feel overwhelmed. And the less that they acknowledge that, the less honest they are about that emotion, the narrower their window of tolerance is, and it's harder to bear that because you're trying to hold it all on your own. And another thing I'll say about this window of tolerance and stamina mentally is that support is super important in this. A lot of times we view mental health so individually, and we forget that we have people who care about us, who love us, and that we don't just do this ourselves. We can seek support that can help us to ride out the choppy waters. Maybe when our window feels a lot narrower, there can be somebody who floats down that river with us. And so there are things like our faith and spiritual community, our social community, the people around us, our friends, that we seek out family and connection to others. Those are ways that we can seek support and be able to have more stamina, to be able to endure and go through difficult circumstances with other people. And that's where I find a lot of shortcomings in terms of the individual approach to mental health, is that sometimes our circumstances are way bigger than one person can control. I mean, that happens in all of our lives. But then if we can walk through it with somebody, that can make all the difference. So, in conclusion, mental health is important for everyone, and there are concrete steps that we can take to build our mental strength, our discipline, and our stamina. And the first step is always to be honest with ourselves and our current patterns. What's working? What's not working? What are the consequences for the different patterns and routines that I'm engaging in? If I can't be honest about that, then I can't make changes that are going to be helpful for me in the long run. The second thing to keep in mind is that it's not going to be immediate. We want things to change overnight. But if we think about the patterns that we're currently engaged in, those may have been built up over years and years of just kind of routine and knee jerk responses. And so any changes that we're going to make are going to take time as well. They're going to take time, effort, and that's where the discipline comes in, doing 1% every day and doing that consistently. So those patterns are built over choices made repeatedly over time. And eventually those become reflexive and they don't have to be choices anymore. It just becomes what we normally do. And so this is the way that I would encourage everyone to become more of a mental athlete, someone who's disciplined in the mind, who has mental strength, mental discipline, and mental stamina. So that's my talk. It's a little shorter than I thought it would be, but I guess that's fine. People aren't going to mind that, I don't think. And I'll leave some space for questions as well. So thank you all for tuning in. I mean, I'm excited for this partnership. Like I said, I will get a coupon code so that you all can rock some mental athlete gear as soon as I can. So I'll put that up in a post or on the Instagram or something like that. And it'll show up in other videos as ads too. So be on the lookout for that. This is a great initiative that I trust the guys who are in charge of this and that they are supporting local nonprofits. So it's not just going into some big national corporation. This is going to fund and support local communities and people who are actually on the ground doing that work, supporting youth in their mental health. So I'm glad to partner with them. It's an exciting opportunity. And I will have clips from the seminar. We're not live streaming it, but I'll have clips from it. I'll post it, might release it for members, might clean it up and put it out in the public. So we will see what comes of that. I'll definitely have some pictures, some videos, and all of that stuff. So tune in soon and see what comes of that. And I will see you all next time.